Myślę, że to, że jestem Polką, ma bardzo duży wpływ na moje fotografie. Tutaj ta cała architektura trochę brutalistyczna, która jest pozostałością po komunizmie i po PRL-u, ma duży wpływ w ogóle na zdjęcia i bardzo inspiruje też Polaków do robienia zdjęć. Też myślę, że Polacy mają taką specyficzną mentalność, która jest wyczuwalna w fotografiach.
Always like the motto, which I always repeat. Lizard model said that the more specific you are, the more general it will be.
His motto can also be applied to my project in that I try to gain an insight into life in Poland and Polish society through a specific group. Therefore, I asked myself questions like what concerns photographers living here and wanted to explore what they want to capture and portray. This group of people had two things in common, namely photography and the culture of the country in which they grew up. Other than that, they were as different as people are. So the exciting thing really was which topics would come up and perhaps even similar ones. Yeah, and that's how I wanted to capture an image of Poland from the perspective of Polish photographers.
My name is Jan, for friends it's Janek. I'm living in Krakow, now currently on a small break in my home village Janice in southern Poland, close to Beskid Mountains. I really love this place. I'm a photographer, mostly street and documentary photographer, but also trying new genres like portrait. I really enjoy photographing in Krakow. That was quite natural for me to pursue. It was markets that are focused on the old, maybe not old people, but yeah, elder people selling their own dairy products, vegetables and fruits. Actually, you can buy there everything, even flowers, even fish, even watches. That's crazy. I love the green areas in the cities, not only in Krakow but all around, everywhere I've been. But the green areas, for me, it's like the kind of compare it to the oasis on the desert. That a place where you can just catch a breath, stop for a second, and I don't know, have a drink of water.
Hello, my name is Michał Korta. I'm a photographer. I was born and raised in Poland, and I'm working here now as well. I do mostly portraits. Occasionally, I also do documentary photography. The project with the trees, which I called Weeping Willows. I was walking my dog outside of town, so we get in the car and drove like 5 or 10 kilometers and went somewhere in the fields or in the woods. And I started to notice how people treat trees. And me as a tree lover, I really love trees, and I have like some unique species in my garden. And I've noticed this really very bad, I'd say bad Polish habit in countryside, that people cut trees in half. It has like many reasons why people do this, and really my heart bleeds when I see this. And I see it quite often, and it's like a disease in the countryside. Because, I don't know, people plant trees, and then after 10 or 20 years, they see that the tree is big, which is surprising, it grows, and they decide to cut it in half, because, I don't know why actually, like I said, for many reasons, but I don't know, probably because they are too high and the electrical wires. It looks ugly, and it's like devastating for the nature, for trees, and I decided to photo and to document this. 30 years ago, famous Polish photographer Edward Hartwig made a book, Willows, which was at the time groundbreaking. It was 89, published in 89. And it was groundbreaking, sort of romantic and sort of experimental photography, showing trees and landscape, but in some way as a new approach to landscape photography. It's a classic book now, very popular and known. And I decided to do, like 30 years later, a project about how people treat trees. It is critical look at the Polish society actually, through mishandling the trees and misunderstanding the nature. It has multi-layers and many meanings, and you can read and tell a lot about Polish society, also about like uneducated people in the countryside. I don't want to criticize simple life or farmers, but really when you take this perspective, it doesn't look good, and it doesn't tell good things about.
My name is Zosia, and I'm an artist studying at the Academy of Fine Arts in Krakow. My courses are connected to graphic arts such as design, printmaking and photography as well. And what I wanted to convey here was the change of the scenery that was happening right now at that time, and that is ongoing, and the feeling that it would never be the same as it was before. I felt that it was one of the last moments in which I could catch the scenery the way it was, because actually right now behind those bars there is a very big block of flats which completely covers the park that is behind it, so you can't really see it from that perspective anymore. And also that is why it was very important for me to portray myself in here, so that I can tell that I was aware of that situation, because it was kind of scary for me, that I felt like this change is just ominous, that I can't do anything about it, that it's happening right now and it's kind of beyond my my area of what I can do. The natural life here is kind of being destroyed by the building actions that are taken here, and there were a lot of protests actually before that building was being done, before it was starting to be built. And around the place you can see a lot of posters that are opposing the actions that are being done by the developers, but it just feels so hopeless when you see those posters and the block in its whole so it's just behind them. For me it is quite important to throw a new light at the places that are important to me somehow, but sometimes also quite unpopular among like the common collective perception. And I feel like by photography I want to show the part of the life that I find beautiful to other people, so they can also see it this way. And in Poland there are probably a lot of places like that that aren't really that tourist friendly, like they are a little bit desolated or even obscure, but there is usually a prettier side to that, like there is also a lot of green that we need to preserve, and I kind of want to keep that authentic feeling, to protect it from being changed.
I'm Gosia Kępa and I'm a visual artist. In my photography I'm mostly looking on interactions with people, and this, like, the people is the main topic for me. That's for sure. So the project which I would like to talk about is Call Me River Call Me project. It's not finished yet, but the first attempt was really special for me. The whole project, it's a process of trying to find a possibility to meet with a river and to make a conversation with it. It's quite conceptual. I really like to think about this project also in a photographical way, because what we've got through this meeting is not a photography, but it's a, let's say, it's a painting, it's some kind of handwriting, but made by the river. It's also about freezing the moment. It's also about being in the exact place at the special time, and to freeze it and to take it with yourself, to have it in the future. And this is exactly what photography do. When we talk about photography in Polish language, we say about zdjęcie. Zdjęcie, it's a photo, but also zdjęcie as a noun can be a verb, and a verb zdjąć means to take off, like to take something, take off, take on some. Yeah, it can be quite messy with English, but in Polish it's quite obvious. So when we talk about a picture, we also talk about something which was taken off the scenery. We freeze the moment, but what we did actually, when you take a picture, you just take the scene with you. Basically, in the present moment, you are taking a picture, so it's gonna be past in the future. It's amazing. The big inspiration for me was Italo Calvino. So Italo Calvino once said that the life starts in the oceans. So when we went out of the ocean, we took a part of the ocean with ourselves, a part of the water, and we are still carrying it with ourselves. So, like, here and now, I still have a part of this first water within me, and because of that, I thought that rivers are really interesting topic. I have a personal history with the river because I was born in 1997, and it was a year of the big flood, especially here in Wrocław and in my hometown Świdnica. So when my mom was pregnant with me, the big flood just came, and the river as a very powerful, like the water as a very powerful strength, just, you know, destroyed a lot of things, but at the same time it was just so intensive and so strong that I guess I just have it from my very first days, that it's a type of symbol that's really interesting for me.
I'm a part and also a coordinator of a mosaic group, which is a artistic association. It is very important for us to connect people in order to provide more possibilities, such as exhibition space, such as material stuff like cameras or painting materials, or anything that is needed for the projects, and also to exchange our experience that is related to art. As we are a group that is from Krakow, we all have a very complicated relationship with the city and I feel that it also affects our work, like it's usually pretty personal.
I'm a member of Vera Icon, that's a Christian community for artists and culture organizers in Poland. It's about making a space for Christian artists to be together, to pray together, to collaborate as well on the artistic fields. Yeah, just I made great friends in Veraikon that helped me on the technical side, on the artistic side, but also, they keep me motivated, they keep me on track. Veraikon started as a small desire and a big heart of my dear friend Jacek, who was graduating from Academy of Fine Arts in Krakow. He experienced living God in his life, so he wanted to make a group of friends at first that will be together in this adventure of being a Christian artist, you can say that. It has grown to be now a collective of people that are not only artists, but are like the voice of the artistic sensitivity in the church. I'm a Christian, Catholic, so God is my BFF, like he's my best friend, and I spend time with him every day, so that wouldn't be natural for me not to seek him in my photography and through the lens, because every scene, every landscape, every corner of the street I see, it's made by him, and it's existing because of him. So I want to capture scenes that are communicating something about him, but it's only my experience, My experience of God is something that is like the most real thing to me. So in my photography, I just seek how I feel about him and how I believe he feels about me. Our relationship, but also just the nice pictures. Like everything is his creation, so why wouldn't I capture it in the best way I could, right? With all the skill and all the talent that I received. I experienced, and for me, it's the important thing, that I experienced living God in 2016. I was 16 at the time. And that was the nuns out there. I've been in this youth community, it's called Light Life. And so it's just a part of the Catholic Church for teenagers. And it was about going on Christian camps during the holidays. It was about hanging out in the small group during the school year. It was about growing up in faith, really in a very practical way. It's just easy, It's easier to live faith with someone you can trust, with someone you can talk to, with someone you can cry to, to share whatever good or bad things happen in your life. I cannot imagine being Christian on my own, just walking, like being at work, going to school, and being alone in it. For me, this scene is about that's a reference to the Holy Spirit. Plus, there are three birds. So again, number 3 as the biblical infinite, and the nature of God as the Father, Son, and Spirit. And I just love how this photo turned out. I love the lighting, I love the moment, because that's the classic example of this so-called decisive moment kind of photo. And it was made in 2021. It was already quite warm, I suppose May or June. And it's been on one of the Krakow roundabouts. We have this, it's called Mogilskie roundabout. And this colorful background you see is just some kind of mural or graffiti that is, some artist painted, and I really love it.
Cześć, jestem Pola Strusińska, mam 19 lat, skończyłam wczoraj i bardzo, bardzo interesuję się fotografią. Jest to dla mnie najpiękniejsza dziedzina sztuki, w której mogę totalnie wyrazić siebie i łapać ważne dla mnie chwile. Że inspiruje mnie właśnie duchowość, emocjonalność, filmy, Tak naprawdę inspiracji szukam w wielu miejscach, ale to są takie dla mnie chyba dwa najważniejsze tematy, które najczęściej się przewijają przez moją fotografię. Bardzo lubię też interpretować jakieś takie abstrakcyjne formy. Mam taką na przykład fotografię Pocieszyciel i stwierdziłam, że bardzo mnie zaintrygował Duch Święty i stwierdziłam, że po prostu spróbuję go przedstawić za pomocą fotografii, jak on może wyglądać, kim on jest. I zaczęłam szukać fragmentów z pisma i jakoś go próbować umieścić figuratywnie i przedstawić. Także Pocieszyciel jest synonimem Ducha Świętego. Generalnie nie wiedziałam zbyt dużo o Duchu Świętym, a jest to taka ważna postać w ogóle w religii chrześcijańskiej. I właśnie chciałam bardzo przełożyć taką tą abstrakcyjną formę Ducha Świętego na język fotografii, przedstawić go w sposób taki figuratywny, bo najczęściej jest on przedstawiany po prostu jako gołębica, ale jakoś tak nie czułam tej postaci. I właśnie szukałam synonimów, szukałam dużej ilości wersetów, w Biblii, które o nim mówią. I właśnie często pojawia się werset, że to jest pocieszyciel, czyli ktoś, kto ogarnia, pociesza, przenika do głębi. I dlatego stąd właśnie taki tytuł, jako synonim Ducha Świętego. Też na mojej fotografii jest ucho i właśnie jest profil mojej przyjaciółki, która pozowała mnie do tego zdjęcia. I to z kolei trochę mówi o tym, w jaki sposób ten Duch Święty przybywa, że on przybywa w ciszy, w ciszy wewnętrznej, że często go nie słyszymy w naszym takim zgiełku codzienności i zaplątaniu, w którym jesteśmy w tym świecie. Więc to jest takie przedstawienie właśnie komunikacji człowieka z Duchem Świętym. Tak jakoś to poczułam ten temat i stwierdziłam, że chyba to będzie najlepszy sposób, żeby przedstawić jego działanie i kim on jest. I właśnie przełożyć tą abstrakcyjną formę, bo jak wygląda duch, w ogóle Duch Święty na właśnie język fotografii, na język taki wizualny i figuratywny.
But this is also like one idea I was carrying for a long time. The project was about the names of places. I was reading a book, I think, about some place, and there was like a name of Piekło, which means hell in Polish. And I decided to visit all the places which has hell in the name in Polish, yeah? Like Piekło, Piekiełko, and the names which has the same root coming from hell, yeah? From the word hell in Polish. And I did some photographs there, and then I found one place which was called Piekło, and the next village was called Niebo, which means heaven. So we had like this hell and heaven close each other, like super small villages with few houses in each of them, and a small wood between them. And I spent there like half a day and talked to people, photographed some portraits and some landscape. It's like very zen thing to do when you sit in one place and observe the reality. When you spend enough time there, you will see that the happenings is like very intense. So if you, for example, if you sit on a bench in a park and observe people, you will see that there is a theater of life going on. So the idea behind the name, it was just a pretext to focus on a small space. Yeah. There is something interesting in the names, which gives also, it's like nomen omen. The name can project a lot of things on the space, yeah? On the reality and people living there. And I'll be very much interested in that. You will see like strange things, like a small figure of Jesus Christ hanging in the woods on the tree. You have this association, if you know that it's heaven and hell, and then you see somebody with like the dead with this axe. Then you have these associations because of the names, of course. Yeah. So I think it's like really creating another dimension for our brain to interpret things.
Nazywam się Ewa i studiuję psychologię. Mieszkam w Polsce od zawsze. Nie było robione w Krakowie, tylko pojechaliśmy z rodzicami na rowery do lasu na obrzeżach Krakowa i zobaczyłam po prostu na takim parkingu koło stacji kolejowej bardzo rozwalony samochód, wybite szyby, rozgnieciony, ukradzione wszystkie radia, wszystkie sprzęty ze środka cenne i mnie to tak poruszyło, że na początku myślałam, że to był wypadek, a potem jednak zrozumiałam, że raczej jakaś kradzież. Dlatego zanim jeszcze się zorientowałam, że nie był to wypadek i zobaczyłam właśnie ten obrazek Chrystusa na siedzeniu, tak jakoś mnie to poruszyło, ten kontrast Chrystusa, który ma zawsze nad tobą opiekę i tutaj roztłuczone szyby i po prostu katastrofa i przez to zdjęcie jest takie wartościowe i że każdy może sobie ze względu też na swoje przekonania i wiarę, w co wierzy, może sobie właśnie coś, jakieś przemyślenia do tego dodać.
Photographer, but also I'm a researcher. I'm doing my PhD and I'm an activist sometimes. And I've been trying to combine all these three roles in my projects. The notion of home, like what it is. Very often the lack of home, let's say. And also migration as a very, general phenomena, but also I work with individuals sometimes, with migrants, so I also get to know very individual stories. When I was young, when I went to the university, we were about to become a part of the European Union, right? And, I was born and brought up in the 80s, which is like hardcore, communism, not because of the politics so much, but, there was a lot of tension, there was the martial law, but for a child, the memory is that there was nothing available, and there were shortages of everything. So naturally, we were very enthusiastic. I was very enthusiastic about becoming part of the Western world. Well, a bit thanks to the, the type of history teaching at schools. It felt like this is some historical event that we've deserved, as a Eastern European country. The Cold War and the Iron Curtain was something that cut us off from the rest. So we very much wanted, I feel, my generation to become part of the West. And then you become part of the West, let's say, at least on the paper. It's a long process. You start traveling, you start seeing things and using all these opportunities. You go to Erasmus and slowly, you have all kinds of thoughts about what it means to be part of such an organization, let's say. Despite of the 8 years of the right-wing rhetorics telling us otherwise, people really support that fact that we are part of this community. On the other hand, I'm really thankful to all the artists and cultural workers and writers from Ukraine and Belarus who in the past couple of years reminded us, all of us in Eastern Europe, I feel, although our situation before 1990 was different, Poland was somehow independent country along with Czechoslovakia or Hungary, and Belarus and Ukraine were just like republics, within the Soviet Union. But there's people, especially since the war started, they remind us about our unique position actually in this part of Europe. And it's not about resentment, but it's about just reminding ourselves that that we have to take care of certain issues again and again, that democracy is not given, the independence is just not given forever, especially since the war started. All the narratives where you either don't see the real threat from Russia, or where you call for, let's say, the end of the war, and from the pacifist point of view, these are the things that make me feel like I don't want to be part of that narrative that comes from the West. Since 8 years, we've had a right-wing conservative government in power, so that led people to go out and protest all kinds of changes and reforms they were trying to implement. I've been part of this collective, the Archive of Public Protest, and the collective that was established 16 years ago, but I joined them maybe 6 years ago. I think Sputnik used to be, let's say, a collective of Eastern European photographers, especially, I think, to document the changes and the outcomes of the transformation in Eastern Europe after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and there were also basically members from many countries in it. But with time, it turned out that running a collective like this and applying for grants, and organizing exhibitions and so on, is not an easy thing if you live far away from each other. So now it's only 6 photographers from Poland, including me. We've been somehow busy with what's happening in Poland, with all the political tension, and all kinds of issues that are maybe not necessarily directly connected to the politics, but for example with the damage of the forests. And we also teach. This is one of the main goals of the collective. For 12 years now, we've been running a mentoring program. It's a program that lasts for 1 year. We meet once a month with our students, and they work on a long-term project in solidarity with Belarus 3 years ago, or with Ukraine. Still now, we run residencies.
Drodzy Państwo, to jest doskonałe wydarzenie.
I used to run photography workshops with a small group of migrants in Warsaw, and I was teaching photography. People were taking photos, and then we later made an exhibition and a newspaper and so on. It was called New Warsawians, and it from the surface, it looked like it's just fun, right? Like we are learning things together and putting them together, and we're getting to know each other. It's nice. But if you work with a group of people with a migrant background, you know that under the surface there are many problems that they face every day. And especially in a country like Poland, where the policy towards migrants doesn't really exist. And the last 8 years showed that it's very easy to make the society fear, or be scared of the other, of the migrants, of refugees, or so on. And there were many, many tragedies because of that attitude. I deal with very young people and kids, and we have fun, but in the same time, some topics are being brought, let's say, to the table, like between words. So, for example, one of the issues that really bothered me while I was doing this workshop was that I knew that one family, the girl I was teaching, and her family couldn't find an apartment, a place to live. They lived in the refugee center for a very long time. Those refugee centers are located in very remote places. You can't really integrate, you have to walk for miles to the like some train station or something to be able to go to school or to go to work. But then we finished this workshop, and after some time, I realized that I want to focus on this thing, on looking for the apartment, because I am an artist and I can apply for, let's say, some funds as an artist. I can also, on top of finding this apartment as a friend, let's say, as a person, I can also show what it means for such a family in Warsaw. And we did find this apartment, but before this happened, we had many conversations on the phone with potential landlords who were expressing directly or not their racist attitude, towards a family from Chechnya that is willing to rent an apartment. We also talked to a researcher who explains the housing, discrimination in Poland. We also talked to a person from a refugee NGO who says, who speaks to us in the interview, why is it so difficult, and what do young kids of such families have to do to help their parents? When you're a refugee and you come as a young person to a new country, you go to school and then you learn the local language very fast, while your parents do not always have time for this. So as a young person, you often act as an adult. And in that project, I was working with a teenage girl, that I knew from this family, and she was the one that had to, speak to the landlords things, and of course she was never taken seriously. So then I stepped in to somehow, take that stress away from her. So there are all these issues that no one ever considers. So this project was about that. When we found this apartment and the family moved in, there's a happy ending. But in the same time, as you know, the situation has changed. We've had many refugees coming from Ukraine, and we've had this humanitarian crisis on the Polish-Belarusian border. So the topic of people from other countries trying to settle down or find jobs, this has become even more. I worked with a girl who comes from Chechnya, and she's been here for 7 years now, and her family case has been being rejected like every year. And we are scared that the next, decision they're gonna get is a deportation. So these are real issues that I feel very, very helpless with, But the law also is so strict and so inhumane that sometimes you really cannot do anything about this. And the fear of losing a person that you work with, who's really part of this community and goes to school and goes to work and is really for the first time in her life really enjoying the freedom and just feeling part of something. You feel that you I know that we might not be able to do anything to stop a deportation, for example. All the topics associated with migration or losing home or being stranded and so on, all of this I feel it comes from the, let's say, empathy that I think I've developed while learning about my family's history, having to leave your house behind at the end of the war in 45 and come to the western part of Poland, the former Eastern Germany, to move into a house of your enemy. You know what I mean? And it has so many stories attached to this movement. And it's, of course, not only my family, but there were millions of people. And then, there are stories of the German families who also lost their homes, and the Ukrainian families that were expelled from somewhere to take over my grandparents' house. It's really, really complicated, and I feel like I'm, as a second generation born after the war. I really have now this capacity to look at it and to look at these stories.
My name is Natalia Klimza, and I'm obviously from Poland, and I live in Rumia, but right now we are in Gdynia. It's very near. I am a photographer, art photographer, and I published my book recently. When the war on Ukraine began, I was really scared and frightened, and I felt a lot of compassion to that people. It's so close to Poland, and everyone was asking, oh, so what's now? The Poland is the next. I guess everyone somehow was related and was trying to help to those people. Yeah, I was crushed, and yeah, I think I had a little depression, but I wanted to follow what's there, and I couldn't separate from that stuff, and somehow I created a series about fire, and I think it's really connected to that war, because fire in humans' hands is just a tool. The fire was our first resource, and we could feel some comfort and peace in front of fire. So the fire could be a call, but in our hands, when we want to control the power of that, it's power. It's so much power that we can't control it. So in our hands, it could be only destructive, I guess. When I took pictures, I saw so many aggression in that pictures. I borrowed a macro lens to see something more, and I discovered some bubbles. I call it bubbles. Yeah, it looks like a pain. It's hard to see with your own eyes without macro lens. So the bubbles are on the wick, because the wick is on the full fire, and then it suffers the most. When the ashes fall down, we can see how the wick is still burning, but it started to fade away. I feel like the pain is still inside you, but now you are more capable to stand that, so you are more ignorant maybe, but you haven't healed, but the pain is still with you. So yeah, that's how I see the situation of the war, and how I see that in my pictures of fire. There's a lot of that. It's in every of us that you want to have a control, that you want to have a power, but you always have to remember what's after that and you have to remember about the consequences of your actions, and I think it's about that. My second project was about eggs. I do some experiments with the form of eggs because they were abstract. Afterwards, when I looked on that pictures, I saw a lot of context to abortion and to pregnancy. We had in Poland a lot of protests and demonstrations about abortion, and it started to be about abortion because we had a new law about that, and everyone was disappointed. Disappointment is a small word for that, but yeah, probably we were outraged, and it was the first time when I felt the strength of community, when I felt the power of women, and yeah, it was beautiful, and yeah, but it was also very hard experience.
So I won several portrait awards, including a few times Grand Prix Photo, which is the biggest Polish press competition. And I took this portrait of Barbara, a student in Krakow, because we have like 2016 and 2017, we have a wave of so-called black marches, which were like demonstrations against the government, organized by Polish feminists, women's rights activists. It was like very, very intense, and like there were demonstrations in many cities in Poland, across the country, and I did some documentation on several of them, and mostly in Krakow. I took this conceptual portrait of blackface, one of the demonstrants. Of course, somehow I wanted to join the movement and to do something significant and important. Actually, I don't consider myself a political photographer, but when we look at those projects I made in Poland, most of them are like connected to politics. Many times in my career, I was like not agreeing with politics or government or some other institutions, and I wanted to do something using the tools I use on a daily basis. That was the motivation behind like doing this portrait or other images or image series. I was supporting those fighting women. It was called Strike Kobiet, which means women on strike. Big movement. I support them in most every case they fight for. I'm very much against our government. As a person and as a photographer, I could support like many activities which are against the government. Yeah. I supported many other actions and demonstrations, and some of them were like against government, and some of them like recently was like something about Putin or war, and every action is also special, and if I can, and if it's important, and if I think I can do something important with my camera, I go there, yeah.
Ciężko tak się generalizuje, bo jednak każdy jest inny, ale wydaje mi się, że też to mocno wychodzi w sztuce, w fotografiach. Taka trochę surowa, trochę zamknięta i no nie jesteśmy tacy bardzo do ludzi otwarci i tak jak na przykład Hiszpanie, mamy zupełnie inny typ mentalności. Mam wrażenie, że troszkę chłodny i trochę zdystansowany. Wydaje mi się, że jesteśmy zdystansowani, że trzeba nas trochę otworzyć. I wydaje mi się, że to widać też na fotografiach pomiędzy modelem a fotografem. Jak obserwuję społeczeństwo i siebie i ogóle nas wszystkich, to wydaje mi się, że mamy coś takiego w swoim sposobie po prostu bycia. Myślę, że jest dużo tutaj też w Polsce takich możliwości, żeby rozwijać swoją fotografię i dużo pięknych ludzi, dzięki którym też można to rozwijać. To środowisko takie artystyczne, twórcze jest tutaj bardzo duże i wszyscy chcą ze sobą współpracować. To jest naprawdę wspaniałe, że ludzie chcą wychodzić, chcą współpracować ze sobą i jest dużo bardzo fajnych inicjatyw, które też to jakoś tak podbijają i chcą z młodymi artystami współpracować, na przykład właśnie Splin, w którym jestem. Wydaje mi się, że też tak jakby na sztukę tutaj w Polsce bardzo wpływa cała właśnie tutaj przyroda nasza. Jest tutaj po prostu bardzo pięknie, aż chce się wyciągnąć aparat i robić zdjęcia.